Shall we turn on the phone? We're on air live? All right, this will be the Personnel Committee for July 7th. I'm Council Member Zine. Council Members Koretz and Parks, are they scheduled to be here? Well, we don't know. If they show up, they show up. We have 5 items on the agenda. Let's begin with number 1, please.
And item number 1 is a memo from the mayor relative to the re-exemption of one chief investment officer position for the office of the treasurer.
Hello.
Hi. Krista Binder with the City Treasurer's Office. This is actually a re-exemption for a position that was exempt previously. In fact, I think throughout its inception, the position has always been exempted from civil service. It's actually one of 4 chief investment officer positions in the city, 3 of which work for pension systems, and ours, which is unique in the fact that we do active portfolio management. It's a difficult position to fill. It requires a certain individual with the expertise typically gained over a long career in fixed income portfolio management, which is usually gained in the private sector. So we are looking, the position was vacated very recently.
Why?
And it was through termination. And it was just exempted for the managed hiring process about a week ago, I believe. So we're looking to fill the position as soon as possible.
What's the salary?
About 140,000.
140-ish? So it's an at-will, and if they don't perform, then they're removed,
Yes,
which is what occurred to the former, I assume.
that is correct.
Okay, well, I like the fact that if they don't perform, they're removed. I'm not going to argue that point.
Too much money at stake.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mr. Koretz is now joining us. We're on item number 1. And on this matter, looking for a re-exemption on the chief investment officer. Previous position was terminated. So,
I don't have any questions.
all right. I again commend you on the fact if people aren't performing, they have another place to go. So I think that's very positive. So we will approve that. And maybe they will then salvage our budget.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 2, please.
And item number 2 is a report from the Community Development Department relative to the 3rd and final year civil service exemption extension for a project assistant and a program aide in the Office of Traffic Safety Division in accordance with Charter Section 1001 D4.
Ladies,
Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Navarro, Acting Personnel Director for the Community Development Department. And we are here to address the 3rd and final exemption extension for both positions, project assistant and program aide. Both of the positions are filled. They're full-time, and they're fully funded by the Office of the Office of Traffic Safety, otherwise known as OTS.
from the state of California.
That's correct.
And what do they do?
I'll defer to Ms. Lisa Salazar here, who'll talk a little bit about the program.
Hi, I'm Lisa Salazar. What we do is provide classes throughout the community. We're closely tied to the 21 Family Source Centers. This year to date, our year being October 1st, we have provided 59 classes on car installation, or proper car seat installation for over 1,300 individuals. We've distributed a little over 2,000 bicycle helmets and done classes for young people on how to use them properly. Have actually installed over 1,200 car seats and done safety checks.
Okay, you do that in cooperation with the police department?
Yes, those community events. We attend all of the community events that, what are they called?
Car seat checkups.
Car seat checkups. We're there.
I think we had a couple of those in my district. Do you have a list of the ones that have done citywide? Do they keep that list?
We can get that for you.
See, what I'd like to do is have that distributed to the council offices to let them know, because everybody thinks that the police department's involved in all the traffic safety, and I remember discussing this in the past from CDD. I don't know if every council member knows how often they visit their districts and do the programs. It just gives it a little more knowledge and support when they see it in their specific districts. I know that the ones we've had have been well attended, and most people with the child safety seats don't have them installed improperly. They have them installed, it's installed improperly, and then they learn how to do it the right way. So, like when you were a baby, they didn't have car seats.
Well, I don't know if I remember that far back, but when my daughter
When I
was
was a
of,
baby, they had horse and buggy.
when my daughter was of that age, I definitely noticed that most parents did not have those car seats installed correctly. So this could be a boon to a lot of those parents to do it right, make sure their kids are safe.
But now when you leave the hospital, you gotta have a car seat. You can't leave the hospital with the
Right.
baby, which has changed. Used to carry the baby in the lap and on your way home, and it's a whole different world.
We also run into a lot of individuals who don't have the right car seat.
Yeah. See, like you wouldn't fit in the car seat anymore.
That would have been a long time.
Just a safety belt. No, it's a good program. So, now this is the last year, then what happens?
Well, we apply for new funds every 2 years. We've already been notified verbally that additional funding is forthcoming, so we're expecting an award letter any day now.
So OTS isn't suffering the same financial situation as the rest of California?
I think there are some cuts to that. However, we haven't been notified of any cuts to our particular grant.
Yeah, well, OTS gets their money from fines and obviously goes to a good purpose. We're joined by Mr. Parks. We've done number 1, and we're on number 2, ready to vote on number 2 for the Civil Service Exemption Project Assistant Program Aid in the Office of Traffic Safety Division by
May
CDD.
I ask this? I just wonder, you said it's the final year?
This is the
Final
third
year
and final year
of the
for
grant?
the extension.
Now, what happens if the grant continues?
We would request a new exemption.
So it's not the final year?
Not really.
I
Not
was
really.
wondering. Okay.
With
all
this
right.
program, we never hope it really is.
Okay, I just wondered, because when you say final year, I thought there was a mandate of so many years and it was over, and yet this thing has gone on for a number of years.
That's true.
Okay, you've answered.
As
Thank
long
you.
as they keep having babies, we need these programs.
That's
Okay, all
correct.
right.
That's when we'll stop it, when they stop having babies. So I don't think that's gonna happen in our lifetime. All right, so we have approval?
Yes. You could add me to number 1 also.
Okay, Mr. Parks has added number 1, approved on number 1. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, number 3, please.
And item number 3 is a verbal report from the Los Angeles City Employees Retirement System in response to motion Lavange for Garcetti and Smith on the eligibility of the city's retirement systems for the new federal temporary early retiree reinsurance program in accordance with the requirements set forth by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
That sounds pretty complicated.
Well, we just shorten it to ERP, and we
ERP,
deal with it.
excuse
ERP.
me.
Yes, exactly. That's our inside joke. So I'm Lita Payne. I'm an assistant general manager at Lacers, and this is Alex Verbrenovich. He's our chief benefits analyst, responsible for retiree health benefits at Lacers. We've been tracking this piece of the legislation very closely since before it was even passed, because we knew that the city of Los Angeles would be eligible for some of these funds. And so we've been working on our application. This is actually our application right here, and we had developed it mostly with staff, internal staff, and with some advice from our external counsel. They opened the application filing period on June 29th. Our application was already ready, so we made arrangements to have it submitted in person, and that was submitted on the morning of June 30th, and we have our receipt of application, and now we are preparing our claims data for when the Department of Health and Human Services is ready to receive that.
Sounds good. $5 billion.
Yeah, it's a limited amount of funds. It's supposed to last for the next few years until the healthcare exchanges are in place, and it's meant to incent employers to continue to offer health insurance to early retirees, those between age 55 and 64, which we do.
And we would then be eligible, do we know about how much we're anticipating on receiving?
Part of the application process requires us to estimate 2 years' worth of reimbursements that we would expect to get. And Alex, you want to talk about our estimate?
Sure. Over the next 2 years, we estimate that we would receive $19.8 million in reimbursement funds from this program. In the first year, we're looking at approximately $7.5 million, and the following year, about $12.3 million.
Can we use that to help pay off the city budget?
Well, the money, the intended use of program proceeds are to reduce the increases in healthcare costs for the sponsor, who would be Lacers, or for the members. And so, you know, it has a very specific use outlined in the regulation.
So on that 7.5 and 12.3, total 19.8, that will help reduce the general fund expenditures or Lacers investment for the healthcare?
Well, basically, it would help reduce the cost overall. We can only apply it towards the increases in costs. So,
Oh, the increase is not the current.
So if we have a $5 million increase in the early retiree plans, we can apply the money towards that $5 million increase.
So it's very restrictive.
It is restrictive. The nice thing is, you know, if we do get the $20 million, we're expecting that, you know, that will last a long time to cover increases. And if we're paying less out of our account for this money, then the city would have to contribute less, although it would be, you know, a minimum amount.
It is a minimum amount because the city, as you're aware, they pre-fund the retiree health benefits.
Yeah.
So that kind of has to get figured into it.
And when do you expect to receive notification if we're qualified?
That's the great unknown.
Yeah.
You know, we worked and worked and worked up to the application submittal date, and now we're in this waiting game. Council President Garcetti did have a contact in the Regional Health and Human Services Office, Herb Schultz, and we've been in contact with him. And so he's put us in touch with a regional telephone group that they have, and so we're participating in that so we can get that information as soon as it's available. But just like the application, we're already preparing our claims data to get it ready for submittal as soon as we hear.
Right.
And what is an early retiree defined as? How do you define an early retiree?
Age 55 to 64.
So it doesn't matter how many years of service, just the
No.
age? 55 to 64.
You're not defining it as a specific early retirement program, it's just by age, they're eligible.
Well, they actually call it Early Retiree Reinsurance Program.
I mean, when I say, as far as the city, our early retirement program, it's not just that group of people. It's
Right.
anyone that retires within a certain age group.
Within an age.
Yeah.
And in regards to health benefits, a lot of the times they refer to early retirees as those that aren't yet Medicare eligible or Medicare age 65.
Okay.
So is there a way to identify how much money we're actually saving from the general fund at the end of this process, assuming we get this grant? How
Well-
much we wind up not having to contribute to Lacers?
We'll certainly track it, and as we actually get the funds and it's put into our account, the actuary will figure it into the valuations, and then they'll come up with the final actual number. Because it is a pre-funded account, the actuary's gonna have to figure it out.
And I do-
But there still will be a positive impact on the general fund as a result of this.
Minimal,
We estimate it's gonna be pretty minimal.
yeah.
Because of what we can use the money for, we can only offset increases to the program. We can't offset overall costs of the program.
We can't, yeah, it can't be used as general revenue. We can't use it to offset your contribution to Lacers, so, you know.
But
once
health
it's-
plans have been increasing 10% a year, so there's
Yeah.
still a chunk to, if that's where the benefit is.
Right.
And I do want to note also, although we did submit the application, there's still an approval process, and if there's any problems whatsoever with the application, you know, or if they've received sufficient applications to exhaust the funding, you know, then it will be denied, and if it's a matter of error, we'd have to reapply, and, you know, so it's not for certain yet.
Okay. How about you report back in 90 days? We should have an answer in 3 months. Status of the program application, see if we have received it, and then we can move that forward. Because right now, we're in a holding pattern,
Yeah.
Correct.
waiting for the landing instructions. Okay, colleagues?
Let me ask a question. Is the city's the only one that can apply, or can DWP as a department apply, and CRA and others that have their own pension?
Yeah, DWP, CRA, Police and Fire Relief Associations, they can all apply.
Do we know if they have?
I understand that the relief associations are working on their applications. CRA is contemplating it. I'm not sure about DWP.
Okay. Let me just, if we can ask this CAO, CLA, if we can check on that, and see if all pension plans are taking advantage of this. I don't want to give you any extra competition, but
Yeah.
if,
Oh, ours is in, so.
Yeah.
But even if they'd like to look at our application, if they need help, I mean, they can certainly contact us. I mean,
Yeah.
and they know, I mean, they will have called us.
Yeah.
And I guess beyond checking, I guess we want to say that we want to encourage them all to do so, too, to take advantage of these opportunities.
And we do have a hard copy of the application if you want it for your review.
Or we can send you a soft copy, either way.
Okay? We ready?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 4, please.
Item number 4 is a report from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power relative to information regarding DWP's healthcare providers, their healthcare costs, and preventive care programs.
Carolyn McKnight.
Good afternoon, Caroline McKnight, Department of Water and Power.
Michelle Megan, Water and Power.
Well, let's hear about this program.
Okay, this is on the agenda. I believe it's the report that we filed when we had our healthcare contracts at the council committee meeting on June 15th. So the report was provided at the council meeting at that time, and then it's also being reported here. We filed it in hard copy previous to this agenda today.
Okay. That's it.
And those were responses to questions that you had the last time we were here at the Personnel Committee meeting before we brought our contracts to council on the 15th.
Report base attached, council file. Okay. Okay. Questions?
Yeah, it looks like the DWP plan has had a higher percentage increase than the city's plan. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. We referenced that a little bit on page 2 as to why, in checking with our healthcare consultant to try to answer that question to determine the increase. It's generally due to the higher utilization rates by our plan members and our enrollment growth. So the carriers, when they're giving us their prices each year, look at the usage for the prior year, the actual usage of the plan. And if we have higher usage than the rest of the city or than other parts of the country, they're reflecting our rates appropriately based on usage and our enrollment growth.
So you go from 75 million in 01, 02 to 193, 10, 11. That's a huge, huge jump.
Yes, it is.
Any reason why your members have so much of a higher utilization rate than the rest of the city members?
I can't comment on why their utilization is higher. You know, I don't know if you have any more.
I can't speak to the utilization. I do know that some of our higher costs are associated with some huge one-time increases in specific years for major illnesses that had transpired, and that increased our cost. Not necessarily the utilization, but the total cost over the years for a specific year within that 10-year plan.
So do you mean just some random people that had very expensive cases?
Very expensive, yes. And I believe that was the case, not this year, but the last year. There was a huge increase in one of our years, and it was because of the utilization for that one. I think there were 2 cases in particular that made the increase high.
Gotcha.
Well, it's not sustainable the rate it's going. So something needs to be investigated to figure out how it can come out to a real number. Those are staggering numbers. But it's already done now. Mr. Parks?
No, I think we gave some request or direction before next year's not RFP, but I guess the next year's
Contracts.
plan comes up. And so those are things I'm looking forward to, that with Personnel Department and
Sure.
looking at how having them compete, the embedded insurance company compete for that service, and also the issue of the preventive care and those things. So we're looking for.
We have a meeting coming up on July the 14th to start addressing that, and we've been talking to our healthcare consultant about that as well.
Because I think when we look at the cost, what we were advised is that primarily what drives the cost is the usage, but also the basic configuration of the plan. And then, we hate to say this, but our workforce in general are not healthy. And that's the three things that cause the plans to keep escalating.
Okay, and we do have some wellness components that we explained in this written response, and we've talked to our healthcare consultant about emphasizing that more as we go forward the next year with the next contracts with the carriers, is emphasizing the wellness.
Thank you.
Okay, so recommendation on this matter is receive and file. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 5, please.
And item number 5 is a report from the Personnel Department relative to consolidated reasonable accommodations for employees with permanent work restrictions as a result of industrial or non-industrial injuries or illnesses for the third quarter of fiscal year 2009-10.
Hi, Raylan Napper, Personnel Department. So the report you have covers the third quarter of last fiscal year and compares that quarter to the same quarter from the prior fiscal year. Attachment 1 is 2 pages, and that's the Workers' Compensation Division's report of employees with industrial injury or illness. They track light duty hours worked, IOD saved, and when both of those increase, those are good indicators. And they also track IOD spent, and whenever that decreases, that's a positive as well. So for the third quarter of last fiscal year, light duty hours worked, almost the same, decreased by less than 1%. IOD saved increased by approximately 4%. And then IOD spent increased by 8% from the prior fiscal year. Are there any questions about IOD numbers?
Just look at the charts here.
Then attachment 2 and 3 are reported by the Equal Employment Opportunity Division. Attachment 2 tracks the reasonable accommodation requests within departments. These are people with permanent disabilities that are seeking accommodation. Overall, from the last quarter, the prior quarter, so the second quarter of last fiscal year, there's been a decrease of approximately 25 in total. There were fewer received, more granted, and overall more resolved this quarter.
Now, if we look at attachment 2, animal services denied 1, general services 6, Rex and Parks 2. What happens when they're denied?
They just cannot be accommodated.
Because of their condition?
Because of their condition, maybe they also, I think well, I can look up the specific ones. These are just pending. They can't be accommodated. Those may be referred to citywide placement, which is the next attachment.
Number 3.
Not all of them will be. Sometimes, I don't know the details of all of those denials.
These are people who were working in a position that no longer able to, and we weren't given another position.
The citywide placement, yes. They can't be accommodated within their own departments, so the personnel department looks for places in other departments.
Mr. Parks?
We're just going to ask, we asked Personnel Department to look at broader training on that whole issue of the accommodations. And then what is the term? You have to have this
Interactive process.
interactive process. How far is that going?
Well, we are, reasonable accommodation disability is going to be one of the courses in our future online training academy. So that's where we're going with the future of training. Classroom training just is kind of hard to sustain. And so that's one of the first courses that'll be delivered online, so people can access it from their desk whenever they need it, essentially.
And what about that interactive?
And the interactive process, we communicate with our disability coordinators on that and different training and encourage them to attend training. And the personnel department serves as a resource to those people to help them with the interactive dialogue. We updated the guidelines last year, and we intend to do more quarterly training as we're able to with the disability coordinators on that.
The thing, we haven't seen one in the last few months at the claims board and lawsuits, but what the concern was in the recent past, we've had a number of them, and it almost appeared that every department made their own mistakes as opposed to having a citywide approach to handling those two issues. And several months ago, almost every one of the lawsuits that had those terms in it, we were paying big dollars because people didn't comply with either one of the standards. And so we just really need to make sure that Personnel Department is taking that on to save us a ton of money, because it's within our purview to do it, and many people don't understand it, and particularly that interactive is not voluntary, it's mandatory. And the minute you don't do it, you might as well write the check. So we just ask personnel to just keep pushing that.
Yes, we are, definitely.
Paul?
How are we doing with the LAPD folks?
With respect to,
With respect to finding them other positions?
the sworn
Yeah, sworn.
positions. I know the other positions within the department or anywhere and beyond. The sworn, they have a light duty, a special order regarding light duty and the time limit for that. And last time we checked in closely on that, they were abiding by that. And so once they weren't letting the temporary light duty positions become permanent. There were some people that were kind of beyond that order that had already been there that were aren't covered by that. But so they are working to find other places to keep temporary light duty temporary, and then seek permanent accommodation either within the department or through citywide and through Charter Section 1014 transfers.
Good, thank you.
Okay, no other questions. We will receive and file. And that concludes at 3:35.
2:30.
Giving us extra
2:30. I thought I was going to say.
Good, Dennis.
Well, normally it would be